Welcome back to the channel. It is your dude Kaero. I'm one of your MTG ambassadors, and today we are taking a look at a Commander PRECON Velociraptor. This is Naya colors. It's one of the new Lost Caverns of Ixalan PRECONs. We're going to go over the contents, kind of how the deck works, especially useful for new players to Commander. If you're just getting into it, doing some PRECONs only, that's going to be really helpful for you. And also, we're going to go into some upgrades at the end, things that I think that really work well with this deck, and we're going to focus on probably the last year or two because people have a lot of the cards from those sets. So if you're looking to upgrade it, we're going to do that at the very end. So let's get into it. Before we begin, this Commander deck comes courtesy of Wizards of the Coast. Thank you very much for sponsoring this video. Thank you to Wizards of the Coast, and thank you for watching. If you like the channel, please hit that thumbs up, consider subscribing, and here we go. We're going to open it from the bottom, see what we have here in this Velociraptor. I'm excited about dinosaurs and ramp decks because Naya is kind of like my deal, my jam. Alright, so we've got a temporary deck box. If you don't have one, those are pretty cheap. You can. This one seems pretty nice, but you can upgrade it if you need to as you go along. We have in here life counter. So you can have one side, I believe they go one side to 20 and one side to 40 for Commander. So we'll set that aside. We have the actual deck in here and a little rule booklet and some little tokens over there you can pop out. So here's our legendary creature dinosaur Commander, Pantlaza, Sun Favored, Naya colors, 2 generic for a 4/4 dinosaur. When it comes in or another dinosaur enters a battlefield under your control, you may discover X, where X is that creature's toughness. Do this only once per turn. So Discover is a new mechanic to Lost Caverns of Ixalan. It means to exile cards from the top of your library until you exile a non-land card with that mana value or less. Cast it without paying its mana cost and put it into your hand. So that's actually a very interesting variation. A lot of people compare this to Cascade, but it's really cool that you don't have to play it right away. You can put it into your hand if it's your win con, if it's a counterspell, if it's some sort of removal that you don't want to use right away, it can go into your hand. And the cool thing about Discover is the rest of those cards don't get exiled. They go on the bottom of your library in a random order, so you don't deck yourself. So here, let's open it up. I'm going to go through the cards here. I'm not going to go through everyone. We'll kind of get through them. I'm sure that we're going to see some Commander staples in here. Probably a Soul Ring, things like that. And we'll also see some new cards. So we'll go through cards of note and kind of check them out here. So the first one's the Commander that we already went through. Here we have Weta Trainer Prodigy. This is Naya color 1/5 haste. 1 green, 2 generic. Target creature you control fights another target creature. This ability costs 2 less to activate if it targets 2 creatures you control. So it wants to kind of fight each other, but you can also use it as removal for other creatures if you just want a perpetual fight. If a creature you control being dealt damage causes a triggered ability of a permanent you control to trigger, that ability triggers an additional time. So pair that with your fight things that trigger. Bellowing Aegisaur, 3/5 enraged for 6. Whenever it is dealt damage, put a +1/+1 counter each other creature you control. So there you go. You can fight, have something fight the Aegisaur and then put a bunch of counters on things. And actually that triggers twice with the other legendary. That's cool. Generous Gift. This is a very commonly played card in Commander. It's an uncommon 3-mana instant destroy target permanent. Its controller creates a 3/3 green elephant creature token, which doesn't matter too much in Commander. You just want to have that 3-mana instant to destroy any permanent, including artifacts, enchantments, everything. Battles, Commander, Planeswalkers, you name it. Majestic Heliopterus. 4 mana, 2/2 flyer. When it attacks another target dinosaur you control gains flying till end of turn. So we see these types of cards. They're pretty good. 4 mana for it. It's a little expensive. I'd like to be 3, but it is a 2/2 flyer, so it does get in and give one of your huge things flying, which there are plenty of huge things in this deck. Path to Exile. I think we're all pretty familiar with that. If you're not, it's a pretty commonly played Commander card. Uncommon. Exile target creature. Controller can search for a basic land, put it on the battlefield tapped. Earth Shaker Dreadmaw, an uncommon for Lost Caverns of Ixalan, 6 mana, 6/6 trample. When it enters the battlefield, draw a card for each other dinosaur you control. So kind of a finisher to pay off for a lot of dinosaurs. Ixali's Lorekeeper, 1 mana, 1/1. Add 1 mana of any color. It's not even an elf, it's a human. Spend this mana only to cast a dinosaur spell or activate an ability of a dinosaur source. Fits perfectly in here. We want that turn 1 all the time. Thrashing Bronodons. This is a reprint. Seen some play in multiple formats. Double green, 1 mana for a 3/4 dinosaur. Good stats for a 3-drop, but the main thing here is to sacrifice it for 1, destroy an artifact or enchantment, which green loves to do. You always like it when you have a green body that can block or get some damage in, and then they play a big expensive thing and you're able to sack it to destroy it. Always a classic. Otepec Huntmaster, 2 mana, 1/2 human shaman. Dinosaur spells you cast cost 1 less to cast, and tap at target dinosaur, gains haste till end of turn. That's as good as of a mana dork, really, in a dinosaur-focused deck. You're not going to be able to play your instants and sorceries, but yeah, being able to cast something for 1 less and give a dinosaur haste, especially when you're paying like a 6 or 7 drop, very good. Itzquinth, Firstborn of Gishath. This is Gruul mana for a 2/3 dinosaur with haste. When it enters the battlefield, you may pay 2. When you do, target dinosaur you control deals damage equal to its power to another target creature. That is pretty good for an uncommon. So what I like about this is, let's say, the downside, the floor of this is it's only you have Itzquinth on the battlefield alone. It can target itself and deal 2 damage to another target creature. That's pretty cool. It doesn't say another target dinosaur. And it's a 2/3 haste, so you could really get a 2-for-1 out of that. I like that card a lot. Cultivate. Search your library for 2 basic lands. Reveal those. Put 1 on the battlefield tapped, 1 to your hand, then shuffle. Been reprinted tons of times. Always a classic. Drover of the Mighty. 2 mana, 1/1 human druid. Gets +2/+2 as long as you control a dinosaur, and it's a mana dork. I like that. I quite like dropping that on turn 2, playing a dinosaur, then it being a 3/3 able to go in. Farseek, 2 mana, search your library for a plains, island, swamp, or mountain, put it on the battlefield, tap, then shuffle. Don't think you're going to be getting any swamps or islands, but it's good to get your mountain and plains. Migration Path, another reprint, 4 mana, search your library for up to 2 lands, put them on the battlefield, tap, then shuffle, and you can also cycle that, so that's cool. You can pay 2 to discard it if you've got all the lands that you need, draw it later in the game. Rampant Growth, another classic reprint card. Common, search for a basic land, put it on the battlefield, tap, then shuffle for 2 mana. Ranging Raptors, 3 mana, 2/3 with Enrage. When it's dealt damage, you can search your library for a basic land, put it on the battlefield, tap, then shuffle. Living up to its name with Velociramptor. Savage Stomp, 3 mana sorcery, costs 2 less if it targets a dinosaur you control. Put a +1/+1 counter on a target creature you control, then that creature fights another target creature you don't control. So it could potentially be a 1 mana fight spell and you get a counter on it. Sorcery speed, prefer to have it instant, but it does make up for it with getting a little bit of a counter. Thunderherd Migration, 2 mana sorcery is an additional cost to cast this. Reveal a dinosaur from your hand or pay 1. So if you don't have a dinosaur, cost 3. Search your library for a basic land, put it on the battlefield, tap, then shuffle. So it's kind of just a Rampant Growth, but it potentially... No, let's look. Is it strictly worse than Rampant Growth? Search your library for a basic land, put that card on the battlefield, tap, then shuffle. Yeah, it's strictly worse than a Rampant Growth, but at the same time, you can't have 2 Rampant Growths in your deck, so we just include all the ramp spells. Thundering Spineback, 7 mana dinosaur. It's a dinosaur lord at 7 mana. All other dinosaurs get +1/+1, and it can create dinosaurs as a mana sink for 6 mana. A 3/3 dinosaur with trample, which if you have it on the field, it'll be a 4/4 trample. Atzokan Seer. This is Selesnya mana +1, human druid 2/3, mana dork. Sacrifice it, return target dinosaur card from your graveyard to your hand. I like that. That's pretty good. Raging Regisaur, 4 mana 4/4. When it attacks, deals 1 damage to any target. You'd be surprised how much that comes in handy. 1 damage to any target. Picking off mana dorks, just hitting them for their face, getting that extra damage in. That happens. That in a game of Commander, you're going to be able to pick something off of that. Maybe a 2 or 3/1 or a mana dork or something. Raging Swordtooth, 5 mana 5/5 trample. When it enters the battlefield, does 1 damage to each other creature. That's actually pretty good, because all of our stuff is going to be higher than 1/1, except for our little mana dorks, which by the time we hit turn 5 or 6, we maybe don't need them. Rhythm of the Wild, 3 mana enchantment. Creature spells you control can't be countered. I have friends that are going to hate this card. Non-token creatures you control have Riot. So Riot, I believe, came in a couple years back. I want to say a Ravnica set. Could be wrong. They enter the battlefield with your choice of either a +1/+1 counter or haste. Always nice to have the option. Arcane Signet, Commander staple, 2 mana. Add 1 color of any thing that's in your commander's color identity. Called it Soul Ring in here. 1 mana. Add 2 colorless mana. Very good on turn 1. Command Tower. Fantastic. Evolving Wilds. Sacrifice that. Fetch a basic land. Jungle Shrine. Enters the battlefield tapped. It is a Triome in Naya colors. Myriad Landscape. Comes in tapped. You can sacrifice it for 2 mana. Tap it. Search your library for 2 basic lands that share a land type. Put them on the battlefield tapped. Then shuffle. So you can get... Well, the Jungle Shrine is actually just a land. It's not a mountain forest plains. But if you have a Triome in here, like say something from the new Capenna where they're all that type, you could go grab... Oh no, they're basic lands only. So you can only grab like 2 forests, 2 plains, 2 mountains. But that shouldn't be a big deal. Bronzebeak Foragers, 4 mana dinosaur. When it enters the battlefield for each opponent, exile up to 1 target non-land permanent that player controls until it leaves the battlefield. X and plains put target card with mana value X exiled with it into its owner's graveyard and gain X life. So in a game of Commander, you could pick off 3 things, and then if it's not dealt with, you can kind of sneakily at instant speed just put those into the graveyard. Or even if they threaten to remove this, you could put those things in the graveyard if you have the mana, gain some life, and they don't get them back, which is pretty sweet. From the Rubble, 6 mana enchantment. When it enters the battlefield, choose a creature type. I think we're going to choose dinosaurs. At the beginning of your end step, return target creature card of the chosen type from your graveyard to the battlefield. That is pretty potent. So 6 mana enchantment that reanimates something of a certain type every turn. Get one of your dinosaurs back. Very good. Wrathful Raptors. 5 mana, 5/5 trample. When a dinosaur you control is dealt damage, it deals that much damage to any target that isn't a dinosaur. That is rough for an opponent. Drop this and swing in with all of your stuff they don't want to block, because then you can just point all that damage at an opponent's face. Or, I mean, you could even swing at somebody. The person to your left, if they block everything, then you can say one of the other players is at 8 life or something. You could kill them and the other opponent at the same time. That is a really good card. Curious Altasaur, 4 mana, 2/5, Vigilance Reach. When a dinosaur you control deals combat damage to a player, draw a card. Used to seeing these types of effects in like blue or on little smaller creatures, but I guess there's enough creatures with trample that some of that damage could carry through and draw a card off of that. Interesting. Dinosaur Egg, 2 mana, Evolve, 0/3. An Evolve is when a creature enters the battlefield under your control. If it has greater power or toughness than this, put a +1/+1 counter on this creature, which is basically always, unless you're playing a 0/1. When Dinosaur Egg dies, you may discover X, where X is its toughness. Scion of Calamity. 5 mana, 5/5 Myriad. When this creature attacks each opponent other than a defending player, you may create a token that's a copy of this creature that's tapped and attacking that player or planeswalker they control. Exile the tokens to the end of combat. When it deals damage to a player, destroy target artifact or enchantment that player controls. I love it. It's a 5 mana, 5/5 that you get to attack all 3 other opponents with, and then if they get combat damage through, you get to destroy some enchantments or artifacts. I love that card. Sunfrill Imitator. 3 mana, 3/3. When it attacks, you may have it become a copy of another target dinosaur you control, except its name is Sunfrill Imitator and has this ability. So you declare it as an attacker, it becomes a copy of one of your bigger things. Maybe you have Scion of Calamity out. So then you attack with that, have another Scion. And then, no, that wouldn't work. Because the Scion would already be declared as an attacker. But still, some cool shenanigans to do with Sunfrill Imitator. And it's a dinosaur. It's not like it's a dinosaur even if it doesn't transform. Progenitor's Icon. 3 mana. When it enters the battlefield, choose a creature type, add 1 mana of any color, or tap the next spell of the chosen type you cast can be cast as though it had flash. That could mess somebody up. Bring in a crazy instant speed blocker. Achroma's Will. It's a reprint, 4 mana, choose one. If you control a commander as you cast the spell, you may choose both. Creatures you control gain flying, vigilance, and double strike until end of turn at instant speed. That's a heck of a finisher for a huge deck. Or creatures you control gain lifelink, indestructible, and protection from all colors till end of turn. That is nasty. Depends, you have to have creatures on the board or else this is a brick in your hand, but as long as you have creatures on the board and you're threatening a lot of damage, that is just nasty. Kinjali's Sunwing, 3 mana, 2/3 flying. Creatures your opponents control enter the battlefield tapped. Ooh, a little bit of taxing type of stuff going on in this dino deck. Okay, I can get down with that. Temple Altasaur, 5 mana. If a source would deal damage to another dinosaur you control, prevent all but one of that damage. So that goes for burn, that goes for opposing creatures, and it doesn't trigger only once per turn. That is very good in a combat-based game. Now, all these things are still subject to board wipes and stuff, but if you're going to combat with somebody and you have this out, that is killer. Awakening Sun's Avatar, 3 white, 5 generic in a Naya deck. Okay, it's an 8-drop, so 3 white shouldn't be too bad. Legendary 7/7 for 7. When it enters the battlefield, if you cast it from your hand, destroy all non-dinosaur creatures. Good, you just have to make sure that your opponent's not also playing this deck. Zetalpa, Primal Dawn, 7 mana, 4/8. This is a reprint. Flying, double strike, vigilance, trample, indestructible dinosaur. Now, Zetalpa is a little bit like Mimi because it just gets killed a lot. Because it does have indestructible. People have ways of dealing with it. But in a deck where you have other dinosaur synergies, that's a lot of keywords. Chandra's Ignition, 5 mana. Target creature you control deals damage equal to its power to each other creature and each opponent. Very nice with a deck with huge dinosaurs. Itali Primal Storm, 6 mana. It's a reprint, 6/6. When it attacks, exile the top card of each player's library. You may cast any number of spells from one of those cards without paying their mana cost. Pretty self-explanatory that if that thing gets to attack more than once, it's going to get really, really gross, especially if you're playing against a opponent with some very big spells. Fiery Confluence, a reprint. Choose 3. You may choose the same mode more than once. 1 damage to each creature, 2 damage to each opponent, or destroy target artifact. Marauding Raptor, 2 mana, 2/3 creature spells you cast cost 1 less to cast. So far, I like that just generally, not even for dinosaurs. When another creature enters the battlefield under your control, Marauding Raptor deals 2 damage to it. If a dinosaur is dealt damage this way, it gets +2/+0 till end of turn. So you don't want to play your human shamans after this, but you do want to play another dinosaur with some high toughness. You could play that Dragon Egg where it's a 0/3, does 2 damage to it. This comes a 4/3, and then just makes all your things cheaper. Very good. Apex Altasaur, 9 mana, 10/10. When it enters the battlefield, it fights up to 1 target creature you don't control. It has Enrage. When it's dealt damage, it fights up to 1 target creature you don't control. Wow, you don't want to block this. You don't want to try to burn it away. You don't want to really mess with it. Destroy target creature has its name written all over this thing, because if you don't, you can't just eat that 10 damage very often. Deathgorge Scavenger, 3 mana, 3/2. When it enters the battlefield or attacks, you can exile a target card from a graveyard. If a creature card was exiled this way, you gain 2 life. If a non-creature was exiled, it gains +1/+1 till end of turn. That one's a little lackluster for me. It is good to have some graveyard hate in Commander, but it's a 3 mana, 3/2, potentially a 4/3 whenever it attacks. I don't know, the unpredictable nature of it, and gaining life, like, yeah, it's fine. Descendant's Path, 3 mana enchantment. At the beginning of your upkeep, reveal a top card of your library. If it's a creature that shares a creature type with a creature you control, hopefully it will be, you may cast it without paying its mana cost. If you don't, put it on the bottom of your library. Yeah, that's going to be good in this deck. Dinosaur on dinosaur on dinosaur on dinosaur. Rampaging Brontodon. This is a reprint. 7 mana trample. When it attacks, it gets +1/+1 until end of turn for each land you control. It does have trample going for it. Can't be chump blocked. It is very brittle. I'd like to see a little bit more for 7 mana, but I think it's a little bit of an older card, so power levels have crept up since then. Regal Behemoth, 6 mana, 5/5 trample. When it enters the battlefield, you become the Monarch. When you tap a land for mana while you're the Monarch, add an additional 1 mana of any color. Return of the Wild Speaker, reprint here. 5 mana, choose one. Draw cards equal to the greatest power among non-human creatures you control, or non-human creatures you control get +3/+3 till end of turn. That's a pretty good modal card. It's a little expensive, 5 mana, and it is dependent on you having a big thing out. Let's say they take out your big thing and you only have a 2/3 dinosaur. You do get to draw, 2 cards, or you get to make it a 5/6. You have to have a lot of stuff out, basically, either way. But I do like that as an instant. Ripjaw Raptor, 4 mana, 4/5 enrage. When it's dealt damage, draw a card. Hey, simple but effective. Attack with that all day long. Worst thing, maybe you kill one of their creatures, you draw a card off of it. So be it. Rishkar's Expertise, 6 mana. Draw cards equal to the greatest power among creatures you control. Like that. Sorcery speed, though, so before it resolves, they can remove your big thing. You may cast a spell with mana value 5 or less from your hand without paying its mana cost. I like that tacked onto it. That's actually pretty good, because you definitely will get the latter text. You might not get the first one. So you might, have a 6/6 out. You cast this, they kill your 6/6, and then the next greatest thing you have is a 2/3, so you might get 2 cards. But you might draw a big thing and then be able to play it. I actually like that card a lot. Runic Armasaur, 3 mana. When an opponent activates an ability of a creature or land that isn't a mana ability, you may draw a card 2/5. I don't think so. I don't really like that card all that much. Here's the thing. A lot of people in Commander, especially on turn 3 or 4, are activating mana abilities right there. So, I don't know. Being a 2/5, it's not very aggressive. It's kind of situational. Shifting Ceratops, 4 mana. The spell can't be countered. Protection from blue. 1 green. It gains your choice of reach, trample, or haste till end of turn. That's not bad. Alright, can't be countered. Protection from blue has something going for it, situationally. But at the end of the day, it's a 4 mana 5/4. And it can come down, you can give it reach to block flyers, you can give it trample if you buff it up, or on turn 5, if you can get in, you can just make it a haste right off the bat. So that's actually pretty cool. Topiary Stomper, originally from Streets of New Capenna, I believe. Double green, 1 generic for 4/4 vigilance. When it comes down, grab a basic land card, put on the battlefield tapped. It can't attack or block unless you control 7 or more lands, which shouldn't really be a problem in this deck. Verdant Sun's Avatar, or Verdant Sun's Avatar, 7 mana 5/5. When it or another creature enters the battlefield under your control, gain life equal to that creature's toughness. Nah. It's fine. Life gain without payoffs, life gain for just its own sake, is never, amazing to me. So, it is what it is. For 7 mana, it's a 5/5. Wayward Swordtooth, 3 mana Ascend. If you control 10 or more permanents, you get the City's Blessing for the rest of the game. You can play an additional land on each of your turns. And Wayward Swordtooth can't attack or block unless you have the City's Blessing. So, 10 or more permanents, you get the City Blessing, you get a 3 mana 5/5. Play additional lands. That's actually pretty good. Play it on turn 3, play an additional land, get yourself 10 permanents, and then it becomes better later. Quartzwood Crasher, 5 mana. I recognize this card, but I don't know. I can't remember what it's from. 6/6 trample. When one or more creatures you control with trample deal combat damage to a player, create an XX green dinosaur beast creature token with trample, where X is the amount of damage those creatures dealt to that player. Situational. Have to have a lot of tramplers, but could be good. Regisaur Alpha, 5 mana 4/4. Other dinosaurs you control have haste. Now that is a line that I like to hear. When it enters the battlefield, create a 3/3 green dinosaur creature token with trample. Yeah, that's a good card. 5 mana 4/4 with a 3/3 trample haste. Yep, that's good. That's quite good. Xenagos, God of Rebels from Theros, Beyond Death. 5 mana, 6/5 indestructible. It's a god. It's not a dinosaur. As long as your devotion to red and green is less than 7, it's not a creature. At the beginning of your combat in your turn, another creature you control gains haste and gets +X till undetermined X is that creature's power. So, yeah, just really doubles power and toughness based on the existing power and gives haste. Xenagos is quite good. As a 6/5 indestructible, coming in later, sure. Zakama, Primal Calamity, also a reprint. 9 mana, 9/9 Vigilance, Reach, Trample. Now, we've seen the ramp, we've seen the mana dorks, now we're getting into the payoffs here. When it comes into the battlefield, if you cast it, untap all lands you control. Then we have several mana sinks here. 3 mana in either red, green, or white. 3 damage to target creature, destroy an artifact or enchantment, or gain 3 life. That is a very versatile card, and yeah, definitely can wreak calamity on the opponent for sure. Lifecrafter's Bestiary, is this from Amonkhet or, no, Kaladesh, I believe. Beginning your upkeep, scry 1. Whenever you cast a creature spell, you can pay green. If you do, draw a card. Haven't really been a huge fan of that card when I've played it in formats that are 1v1, but I can see it being a little better in Commander. Arch of Oraska. Ascend. If you control 10 or more permanents, you get the City's Blessing. Add colorless mana. 5, tap, draw a card. Activate it only if you have the City's Blessing. Canopy Vista, Forest Plains, enters the battlefield tapped unless you control 2 or more basic lands. Alright, Quality Land. Cinder Glade, same deal. Clifftop Retreat, same deal. Exotic Orchard, 1 mana of any color that a land an opponent controls could produce. You have a tricolor deck here, so you're pretty good. You're at least probably going to get a mountain, plains, or forest out of somebody. Fortified Village. When it enters, you can reveal a forest or plains. If you don't, it enters tapped. Fury Calm Snarl, same type of deal. Game Trail, you can reveal a mountain or forest. Yep, same deal. Kessig Wolf Run from Innistrad, one of the Innistrad sets. Add colorless mana or X and Gruul. Target creature gets +X/+0 and gains trample till end of turn. Now, we've seen some trample payoffs in this deck, and that's just not a bad effect to have on a land. So, I think Kessig Wolf Run is very good. Mosswort Bridge. This is taking me back. This is back to Lorwyn. It was either Lorwyn, Morningtide, or Shadowmoor. I believe it was Lorwyn. Hideaway 4. When this land enters the battlefield, look at the top 4 cards of your library, XL1 face down. Put the rest on the bottom in a random order. Comes in tapped to add green. You can pay 1 green, tap it, play the exile card without paying its mana cost if creatures you control have a total power 10 or greater. I like that Hideaway land. It's pretty cool. Path of Ancestry. 1 mana of any color in your commander's color identity. When that mana is cast to cast a creature spell that shares a creature type with your commander, scry 1. Decent little land there. Rogue's Passage. Okay. Rogue's Passage in a dinosaur deck. Alright. I don't know that they can fit through there, but that's fine. Tap to add a generic mana 4, and tap it. Target creature can't be blocked this turn. Flavor text is: rumors quickly spread among thieves about a labyrinth without walls and a prize beyond all measures of worth. Can't imagine a dinosaur fitting through there, just crashing through the wall. Secluded Courtyard. Choose a creature type. Either add colorless mana or a mana to cast that creature type. Temple of the False God. Add double colorless. Activate only if you control 5 or more lands. So that's not a great land turn 1 or 2, but later on it could get you from 5 to 7 pretty quickly. We've got Terramorphic Expanse, another sack land. Thriving Bluff. Choose a color other than red. Add red or mana of the chosen color. Thriving. Unclaimed Territory. Choose a creature type. Yep. Spend this mana only to do that creature type. And then we've got a whole host of basics here and tokens. So, now that we went through the entire deck, we're going to talk some upgrades. So the first thing is 2 lands. You're going to want to do Jetmir's Garden in here. This is a Triome from Streets of New Capenna. This does come in tapped, but it has the ability to create 1 of any mana that you need in this deck. You can also cycle it if you draw it later. The other land I'd consider putting in here is Drannith Ruins. It doesn't give you mana of any color, but 1 is just fine, and the ability to buff up any non-human creature that comes in is going to be really clutch, because basically most of your things are non-humans in this deck. We have a lot of enter the battlefield triggers. We have a lot of things that we could benefit benefit from making things enter twice. So for that reason, we're going to have cards like Ephemerate and other bounce spells like this, like Teleportation Circle from Adventures in the Forgotten Realms, to keep getting those enter the battlefield triggers. Speaking of enter the battlefield triggers, with a dinosaur, we're going to have Itali Primal Conqueror or Itali Primal Sickness in here. This is one of the best dinosaurs to come out recently, and since it was from a recent set, people have it and it's available. So if you have Itali, throw Itali in there, you can't go wrong. For ways of getting our dinosaurs, any dinosaur in our deck, we're going to have a tutor, and that tutor is Worldly Tutor, the green tutor that lets you get a dinosaur. So grab that. And we know Generous Gift is a very good removal spell in Commander, being able to destroy any permanent. We also have one recently that was uncommon from Wilds of Eldraine that is Stroke of Midnight, and it gives them a 1/1 human token. But being able to destroy any permanent instant speed is very good. So that's my last upgrade for the deck. Thank you very much for watching. I appreciate it. Thank you to Wizards of the Coast for sponsoring this video. I hope you got something out of this video. If you did, please smash that like button. Please hit that subscribe button. And hopefully I will see you next time, and hope you have a great day.